everybody, and welcome to this B-Sides talk where we go over dashboarding wowzers, how you can make your dashboards look even more awesome and how you can make them easier to manage and in some ways future-proof as well. So thank you for joining me. My name is Tom West. I'm a PS consultant here at Splunk. I'm also very proud and honoured to be a member of the Splunk Trust, an amazing group of people that I've got nothing but respect for. At this point as well, I really like to just give a big shout out to Tony, to Rich and to Clara for putting together this amazing event, for all the other speakers, for adding all the content that's made it so good, and also you for tuning in and really making it worthwhile. I am going to be online as this presentation runs through. If there's any questions that you want to ask, then feel free to reach out on the community Slack channels. Really happy to answer any questions as we go through. So first thing about this PowerPoint presentation is it's not a PowerPoint presentation. That is it as far as PowerPoints go. We're not going to go any further for the rest of this presentation. So you may or may not be glad to know that. If you're downloading the Prezzo, then maybe not, but there will be an app available for you to download and really play with this afterwards as well. So there's 5 different topics that we really want to cover, and another one as well within that. So first of all, we're going to start with tokens. If you've never come across tokens within dashboards, then what are they? Why you would want to use them, and how to really start making them work for you. Then we go into something I call hidden text inputs. So what those are, how those relate to tokens, and why you may find your life a lot easier when you use them if you're someone that creates a lot of different dashboards or has to update other people's. Then we go on to CSS, how you can make use of that within Splunk, why you would want to. Within there as well, we'll cover a little bit on base searches, what they are, how you can use those, and again, why you may want to. Then answer the age-old question of how do you make a dashboard visible to someone outside of Splunk. Spoiler is, unfortunately, you can't. However, you can embed safe searches, so we'll cover that in the in that part. And then finally, we're going to touch on version control, how you can version control dashboards using Splunk in Splunk. A fun little finish there. So first of all, we're going to go with tokens. And tokens are basically variables in a dashboard. And the first time you'll tend to come across a token is when you add an input into a dashboard, and you get this joyous red exclamation mark stating searches are waiting for input, almost making it look as though there's a problem. And basically what it means is this search is relying on the value of this input here, and until it's given a value, it's not going to run, and it's going to almost make it look as though there's an error. So if we give it a value, select yes, that changes, and then we get what we want to see, which is a table output of our search. In this case, it's just very, very simple, hi there. Now, there is a way of being able to hide it, and there's a flag within the XML of the dashboard that you can take advantage of called depends, and this is an argument that's going to have a look to see whether a token exists or not. If it does exist, then that depends argument is equal to true, and therefore it will show what's underneath. If there's any logic such as searches underneath, they will still run, but you can really start to control the look and feel of a dashboard using depends. We'll see how that looks like right here. So it's exactly the same scenario as above, except this time we're using depends on the search, and we can see it's not actually showing any message saying it's awaiting input. This time we'll go for no, and we're going to see exactly the same output. I could go yes, and it will show the same thing. And then we can make use of another argument, the polar opposite of depends, this time called rejects, and this argument will be true if that token does not exist. My favorite way of using this is when we have an input and just showing a little bit of HTML saying please select an option, just to make it a little bit more of a friendly way of saying you need to enter something, rather than relying on assumption or displaying what may appear to be an error, or maybe presumed to be an error. So this time we select yes. That rejects argument now becomes false because that token that it's looking for is true, so that panel will be hidden, and the depends argument, that is now true because that token does exist, and so we show the search instead. This sounds as though there might be quite a lot of work involved. If you've never dealt with this before, it may feel like there's a lot of work involved in having to do it, but thankfully it's really simple. If we open up the XML for the dashboard, we can see there's 4 rows. Row 1 being test 1, row 2 being test 2, row 3 being test 3. Row 4 is just the XML underneath, so we're just going to concentrate on rows 1, 2 and 3 for this. So looking at the first row with the open and closing blocks, we can see that the row is consisting of 1 panel. Within that panel we've got 2 different objects, the first being an input, and we can see the type is a drop down. An input is basically just a token, which is a spoiler alert really for the next bit. But that token in this case is being set to select view 1. We can see the label of test 1, the choices of values of yes and no. And then the next option, the next object in this row is a table. We can see the search, and how you use a token in a dashboard is that you separate it with pounds or with dollar signs. So it's dollar select view 1 dollar, and this search, so it includes that that token. It defines that it needs to use that token. When that token does not exist, that's when you get the message saying search is awaiting for input. So it doesn't do anything with it, but it's quite useful if you've got really big dashboards and you want to control when a search is run and things like that. Just throwing in a blank token somewhere in your search and controlling when that's set and not is a good way of trying to minimize the impact of your environment with a big dashboard. But in here it's literally just running that make results. It's not using the token, it's just there, and as soon as that token does exist, because we've selected a value, the whole search can run. The last thing it does, the last thing this table blocks has is a drill down. And so whenever we just select any value, the option name here is drill down on the cell. Whenever we select a cell, it's going to set the token of just show to row. And we can see that's using depends exactly like we're about to see anyway, on show to row. So when that token show to row is set, it will go and make this depends argument on the row true, which then means that this row will display. And here we've got exactly the same thing here, where we've got a set on show to results and the depends on the table. Other than that, everything else is exactly the same, where the number 1 is referenced, it's now number 2, but that's pretty much it. However, the other thing I'd like to just bring to light is this event handler within the search. So the search block has a done, listening for the done state for the search. So when the search finishes running, it's going to go and run whatever is in this block. In this case, we're setting a token of show to results. That is what the parent table object is using for its depends argument. So the search underneath is still able to run. Only when it's finished running will it go and say, right now I actually want to show the results of this search. So if you've got a search that may take a little bit of time to run in a dashboard, if you've got say a big dashboard and you want to show some bits first because it can render that quickly, and then show loads of things underneath, but it takes a bit longer to run all the searches for that, this is a fun way of being able to put that together. And at the bottom is exactly the same again, where we've got the drill down on the table to show the 3 row. 3 row this time, the only is exactly the same as above, even with the done event handler. However, the difference being the rejects option, and it's literally just this HTML block where rejects is show 3 results, and it's just a police select an option, a bit of text underneath that. And that is a very, very quick whistle stop tour of what tokens are and how you may be able to take advantage of them to control the views and states of your dashboard. So as you get a little bit more complex, we go into hidden text inputs, and we'll just kind of go briefly back to the previous dashboard here because it's kind of important. We have a look again and just refresh ourselves with the drill down. When we selected a cell within the table, we can drill down and we can set this token of show to row. Now if you've got many different tables, then you may want to set and unset different tokens to make different depends arguments true or not. And as your dashboards get bigger, the drill downs associated with those will typically get bigger as well and be a little bit more harder to manage, especially as you want to make your dashboards more complex, or you want to change different features. You may not want something to do something that it was doing before. You want it to do something else, and so it may take a bit of time to edit all those and can be a bit of a pain. However, you can centralize a lot of that logic with hidden text inputs, and you're also given ways of being able to conditionally perform other actions based on the value of a token, which is something you can't do in a drill down. So we'll just see that right here. We've got this dashboard, and we're using data from my smart home. Quick mention to my other B-Sides talk where we go over setting up a smart home with Home Assistant, Node-RED and Splunk, which was on the first day. Really recommend giving that a check out, but for the purposes of this, we've got four different options we want to have a look at. Battery levels. We can select a sensor to view its battery level over time. Over a 24-hour period, we wouldn't really expect that to change much. Go over to lights and just select any light, and we can see here that we've got a state and we've got an average. If we go for a light that may be a little bit more busy, the one that's changing behind me, we can see what the state of that is, 1 being true, 0 being false, and 0 being false, and we can see what the average light level is for that particular light. In this case it goes from 0 to 250, so most of the time it's on half or it's on full, and we can see what the minimum value was for that half an hour period, what the maximum value is, and what the average is in the middle. So state, min, max and average. Then if we go on to motion sensors, check out the kitchen for a fairly predictable level of activity in the kitchen, where we can see the max of 1 being that there was motion activity at some point, and what the average level of activity detected over that 30-minute period is. So where it's higher, it means that there was more activity. Where it's low, it means someone just probably quickly popped in and then out again. But for this particular chart, it's max, min and average. If we go into temperature and we have a look at the kitchen again, and we can see how that temperature fluctuates, and again we're seeing a max, min and average. So what looks like 3 different charts but over 4 different options. And if we go into edit, we can see that it's using the depends flag again that we just touched upon, but this time how that's visualized in an edit form when you're editing the dashboard is that any hidden chart or hidden panels, rows, objects, they're surrounded with a dashed with this dashed line to indicate that they are hidden. And we can see that there are 3 charts. So one of the options here is using the same chart, and we're controlling the logic for that with this hidden text input here. So we can go, so we have 2 different inputs. We have an input that will unset any tokens that may control states or that we want to basically remove, and then we want to set only those tokens that we're interested in based on the state of our dashboard. So in this case we want to have a look at so we're basically just saying that we are setting these based on temperature or whatever the value is up here. So we've got temperature there. If I change that to battery, we can see they both change to battery at the same time. And how that works under the hood is that we have these 2 inputs they've got the token values of hide view and show view. They're set at the top here in this first drop down, and to set the actual value that you see in the form, you have form.hideView. So you do form dot and then the token name for your input, and we set it to battery, to lights, to motion, to temperature, which is just akin to what's at the top here. So as we get to hide view, these are going to unset 4 different tokens. So we're going to unset timechart_range, timechart_min, timechart_light, and selected entity. So the ones with timechart at the beginning, they relate to the 3 timechart panels that we saw above that were dashed. So first one being timechart range, so panel depends timechart range, panel depends timechart min, panel depends timechart light. So one of those will be set, and that will be what we're using. But then each of them underneath has also got a separate depends, and this is on the chart object, where it depends on selected entity, and that's for all of them underneath here. So in order for this chart, this one here, to display, we want to we need to make sure that timechart_min is set and selected entity is set. So timechart min will be set whenever the first drop down is battery, otherwise it will not. And then the selected entity is on the first table that we see in the dashboard. When a row is selected, then the drill down here is just to select the selected entity, and that's the field name of entity ID. So $row.entity ID, and that will then go and assign the entity ID to this token. That will then go and make sure that that token is set, and then we also use the value of that in the underlying search that we have for each of these. So index is Westy home, entity ID equals the selected entity that we chose before, and that's how all that hangs together. If we were to not use hidden text inputs for this, what we would need, because we're using the same table, doesn't matter what we've selected here, whether it's battery, lights, motion or temperature, we would have to have this condition statement that we have at the bottom in the show view, whether the value is temperature, battery, temperature, motion or light, in here. So we would have to merge the logic for these two. So we would have to go, if the option is selected is battery, then we want to unset the time chart range min and light. We want to unset all those tokens. Well, we want to unset the 2 that we're not wanting to show, and set the one that we want to show. And we would have to do the same here, wherever the value here is changed, unset everything. So you can imagine it becomes quite messy quite quickly, having to have lots of different logic, which is pretty much the same throughout the dashboard. Whereas we can streamline it all with the hidden text inputs that we've got. So as we go into the hidden text inputs, the first what happens is that there's a change event. Whenever the value changes, then the first thing it's going to do is unset all those tokens, as I've covered, and then the last thing it's going to do is it's going to set this token of form.showView, and we're going to set that to the value of this input here. We do that with $value $. That's then going to go and that's going to change the value for showView, which will execute the change event that we're looking for. And here we've got a big condition block. Unfortunately, within a change block you can only have either conditions or just outright effects. So you couldn't have all of this. You cannot do this in there. It unfortunately wouldn't work. You get warnings saying that's not allowed, unfortunately. So this is one of the reasons why you have to do it as 2 separate inputs. But here, if the value is battery, we just want to set we want to set time chart min. If it's temperature, we just want to set time chart range. Motion, also time chart range. Lights is time chart light. Because we've also changed the value here, the entity will no longer associate with the time chart that we wanted to show. So we also unset the selected entity right here. That merges all the logic that we had throughout the dashboard into a single process. If you get rather large dashboards, this becomes quite useful, being able to perform this. I've used this countless different dashboards to make it a lot easier for myself and anyone else that has to edit the dashboards. Just being able to edit it in one place here. The last thing I'll show as well with this we go here, we'll put it in edit mode, and if we were to edit anything here, we can see that they will all go dashed. So if I change it to temp, that changes the value as we saw in the XML, so that show view also becomes temp. The selected entity becomes unset, and the all these become dashed. However, if I select the study center battery, whereas before it was this middle panel here, now it's showing the left panel because we had specified that we want to use the left panel for temperature. So if we were wanting to do that on a permanent basis, it would be a single change in the XML rather than having to change in loads of different places. I really cannot stress enough how useful hidden text inputs actually are. Yeah. So as we go into CSS, this time what we're going to have a look at is really how useful CSS is in the dashboard. So the first thing we can see is that this is basically taking the colors of a light that's behind me, that you may see the background slightly change color on. And at the moment that light is set, the light color is set to 255, 145, 40. And so we're going to change the background color to exactly the same color that the light is at the moment. And it's done that instantly. If I go onto the light and I go and change it to pink, which it is right now, refresh this this search here, then it's going to change the background color to pink, to a rather painful color of pink as well. If I change it to orange, it's going to run the search again, and it's going to change it back to orange, which I'm sure everyone's eyes are going to appreciate. So this is a really basic bit of CSS, but what it's doing is it's going to change the background color for the dashboard. It's also going to change the color of the single value itself, and this is where it becomes a lot more useful, being able to change the colors of single values rather than a background. So if we go and have a look at the XML for this particular one, you'll notice for the CSS we have to go right down to the bottom, and this is using depends again, but it's on a token called never show. Now the token of never show will never exist, and it basically means that the row containing the CSS will never be visible, which would generally just be a blank line. Yeah, it's not something you would want to show, so putting a depends of never show will mean it never shows. So for the CSS we've got a single panel. Within the panel we've got a single HTML block. In the HTML block a single style block, and this is assigning two separate properties. The first one being dashboard-body, which assigns the background color to the token with the value of the token called bg_color. And we have to use the important flag because otherwise the Splunk dashboard won't update the background color, because there's some other thing built into Splunk to control the color of the dashboard, the color of the background. So we have to use the important flag. And the single result, again, we have to do the same thing. This time though, rather than background color, we have to use the fill object. And again, we're using bg_color, that token there, to update that. But it updates instantly whenever that token changes, which is quite useful. The other thing that you can do with CSS as well is you can change the look and feel of individual rows, panels, anything really, by using an ID. And IDs also, and for the ID you would then just you would refer to that within your CSS, just like you would do any other web page when you're assigning IDs. You cannot, unfortunately, if you wanted to have like two rows that share the same properties but are different from the rest of the dashboard, you'd have to give them separate IDs and refer and almost duplicate the CSS between them. You can't make use of the class object, which isn't available here. However, if you do have different HTML panels in your dashboard, then the different objects within, so you could have style or a div object for instance, you could, as long as they're different HTML blocks, you could actually give them the same ID and so share the properties that way, which I think is something that shouldn't happen, but it seems to work and is quite useful, so it's worthwhile giving that a try and having a play around with that kind of stuff as well. So how you can see ID actually in use, and this isn't for CSS, but this is for base searches. If you haven't come across base searches are a brilliant way of making a dashboard a lot more efficient. And you have to add them in the XML. Typically you would do them at the top of your XML and before any of the rows are defined, and it's literally just a search object, exactly the same as what you'd have as a search object in a table or a chart or whatever it is in your dashboard. So you have it at the top here, you give it an ID and you give the ID a name, in this case main base. You have the query object and what the actual SPL is. Again, you can't edit any of this in the UI, which is unfortunate. You have to go into the XML to do this. But you just have a standard query. Another useful thing to note with base searches is that you have to use what's called a transforming command. So a time chart, a stats, a chart, top, rare, any of those commands. Check out the docs for like the details of all the different transforming commands that are there. They're really useful at stating what they are. Because base searches, you can only pass a certain amount of rows from a base search into the rest of your dashboard. So that's why we always advise using a transforming search. If you know that your search doesn't have that many events and events that are going to blow over the limit, then you can just run a normal search. However, you have to use either the table or the fields command to specify the fields that you want to pass out of your base search into your post-process searches, as they're called. And the main reason you want to do this is because you may have a lot of panels that run the same search. Well, every single panel in a dashboard is a search. So if you have 10 panels, that's 10 searches. But if they all pretty much do the same thing, you can use a base search. So if all your 10 panels do basically run the same query and they're just different visualizations of the same query, then you can have a single base search, and then you can have 10 what's called post-process searches referring to that base search. All of a sudden you've gone and saved your search quota because you're not running 10 searches anymore, you're running 1. So quite useful. It will make your dashboards run a lot faster as well by running base searches and load a lot better. And it means that if you do need to update the search, you're only having to do it in one place rather than 10. So like I said, we've got the ID equals main base at the top, and then for the individual post-process search, we've got our chart, and here we've got a search, but this time we've got base equals and then the ID name for the base search. In this case it's main base, and then we've got some query, just a few statements underneath. If you edit this in the UI, and again you can't specify that you want to use the base of main base, the UI will just show the this is a normal search, and it will look weird. You won't see the full search, just the post-process bit. If you select the option to expand the search when you're editing in the UI, it will just open the search screen and show fields minus color, just that bit there, which is neither no use to nor there. However, you can save that dashboard, and then you've got the option to open in search here. If I hit open in search here, then it will run the full thing, and we can see we get an idea of where the base search changes into the post-process search, because if you have your search well formatted, every command on a separate row, then you will see where that failed, which is quite handy. The other thing as well to bear in mind with base searches, if you blow the event limit, then your search isn't going to indicate that there's a problem. It will just run on whatever events it's passed through, which is a bit annoying when you wonder why your search isn't running right. It was running right before, now I've got to run in base search and it's not running right. That's one of the reasons. The other reason, if you're not using a transforming command, if you forgot to use tables or table or fields, then you will encounter the joyous no results. You'll expand the search and the search will have many results, and you're like, why? That's not right. It's because you've not included table or fields. Again, the dashboard's not going to show an error. The dashboard's going to have no idea that there's a problem, and you'll be very confused when you open your search. So just double check your base search and make sure that there's a table or a field if you're not using a transforming command. really, again, if you're doing dashboarding a lot, recommend just checking out the docs and familiarizing yourself with those particular commands, because it's really useful. Yeah, that's the main thing as far as base searches are concerned. That I could really devote a whole talk into base searches, but we'll not go there. I think nobody will really tune in for that one. So as we move on to embedding, like I said before, the joyous how do you make a dashboard visible to people outside of Splunk? The answer being that you can't. You can embed safe searches. Now, embedding safe searches is a decent way of getting around that. However, there's a couple of issues to be aware of. We can show those embedded searches as well in the dashboard, just like you would a normal safe search, nothing there, and here we're visualizing motion sensors. So if I select any, then I can open up the search, see the safe search. Again, it doesn't look anything different from normal, it's a scheduled search. Here are the results. But when we go to edit, when the safe search is enabled for embedding, can't edit it. All that you can do is you're presented with the option to disable embedding, to edit the report, which you can then do, and then you can go and you can then re-embed again. When you do embed, it creates an iframe. However, when you disable and then re-enable, the token associated with that iframe changes. So anywhere where you're using that that iframe, you then have to go and edit again, which is very, very, very annoying. And for certain things, such as how you visualize the search, different, whether it's a trellis or whether it's a line chart, that kind of thing, unfortunately, that's the only way of doing it. For search, there is a way around it. And we go back to the embedded report, we'll see exactly what that is. And that is because this save search runs a macro. That's the only thing it runs. It doesn't run anything else. It just runs this macro, and the macro name is motion by sensor. If you haven't used macros before, it's a backtick, then the name of your backtick, then the name of your macro, then another backtick. That will then go and specify that you are using a macro. And when you go into, I think it's settings and advanced search, you can define your macro. Your macro can be either a part of a command or a full command or many different commands. In this case, it's a full search. We can also see the properties for the search. So earliest is 24 minus 24 hours, and latest is now, and what the schedule is. Again, the schedule you can't change. The earliest and latest you can, because within a search, the earliest equals, latest equals arguments in your generating search, in the first line of your search where you're getting your events, index equals, then whatever you have in there as your conditions takes priority over what's actually defining the search. So you can change it that way. But how can you change the search? Well, just by editing the macro. The safe search, the UI for the safe search does will prevent you from editing the search, but if all your search does is reference a macro, the macro can still change. So you can update the macro, that will then go and update the safe search. The safe search won't change its token values or properties or anything along those lines, and then it will just run your updated search. Everyone is happy, everyone saves time, and you can finish it. Like, it says no one ever. So the definition for the macro itself, what the actual search is this index equals Westy home, attributes.device classes motion, doing a bit of eval, and then doing a time chart of that to specify if motion's been detected or not. And like I said, if we were to update that, that would then update this when the next time that this search is executed. And that's pretty much all there is to that. Kind of really handy to knowing that you can do that as a bypass. So the last one, version control, and this kind of moves in nicely. One of the reasons you can't edit a search is because you may want to strictly control how that search is, what that search is when you're exporting out to other people on an automatic basis. So you may want a version control, and we do this for dashboards, but you can do this for any knowledge object really. And for me, I have a safe search, and here it's called dashboard version control, and it's a REST search against services, NS, and then it's data, UI, views. We run a REST command against that. What we're going to get is all the details for all our different dashboards. In this case, I'm looking for a specific app, in which case it's Westies_world. Specifying the fields that I'm interested in, so the title, the data, and when it was updated. Now, EAI:data is the actual XML for a dashboard. The title is also the view, what you would tend to see as in the URL at the top. So we're specifying the date to now. We're having a lookup against we're running a lookup against my version control CSV, and we're getting the current XML that's stored there for that dashboard, and we're putting that into a separate field. And then we're going where the XML has changed, where it is no longer what it was before, or it doesn't exist in the first place. Then we are keeping those rows. We are just tabling out the date, so the date being now, view and the view name, so the title, and the XML. And then we are just outputting that as an append. And this search here will just make sure that all our dashboards are, whenever there's a change, so this however often this save search runs, whether it's every day, every 10 minutes, however long it is that you want it to be, anytime it notices a change in the XML, it will go and store that in the CSV or KV store if you want to use the KV store, and we'll make sure that you know that all your changes to dashboards have been done. You can also do this with any knowledge object, whether that is whether that's a macro, say from the previous example, whether that is a save search. ES correlation searches are quite a good one to be able to do this against, whether it's things like indexes and stuff like that. Again, really helpful if you're using cloud and you've not got access to really control all of the back-end com files. Being able to access it this way using REST is good. There is a REST endpoint of configs hyphen and then the com file, so configs hyphen props, which will get you all the details of your props.com files and all that kind of stuff. Macros as well as another one where you can get all that data, and you can put that into a lookup whenever anything changes, if you would want to do so. I've done it before for something previous, but you kind of have to limit yourself as to what you want to do. The other thing that you can do whenever this search runs as well is send an alert to say, hey, this dashboard's changed, and just get someone to double check that it's changed and it should have changed. Especially useful if you've got any sensitive dashboards, anything, being able to do that. And that is pretty much it in a nutshell. I guess the one last thing, and we kind of just touched on save searches before, and save searches and base searches, you can reference a save search and have that reference as a base search. So if you have a save search that runs every however long, you can have that as a base search, assign that as an ID, and then you can then run searches off of that. So you're actually loading up the save search, and you can then run your post-process searches against that base search, which makes your base search easy to edit in the UI. It also makes your dashboards lightning fast because you're not you're not executing that save search every time. The save search, if it's on a schedule, will run on its schedule, and you're using the scheduled save searches results at the last run, which again is quite handy to be able to do all that as well. But I really hope you enjoyed that. If you did, and you do have any questions or anything, then feel free to go onto the Splunk user group Slack channels. You can message me at Westy. You can email me at twest@splunk.com, or you can jump onto the B-Sides dashboarding channel, where I am more than happy to answer any other questions. You typically will also find me on the dashboards channel in the Splunk user groups, answering questions when they come in. But yeah, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of B-Sides. It's been great so far. I'm sure it will continue to be so. And have a great rest of the day. Thank you.